All right. Well, if you're joining us for the first time here on the Heart of the Coach, my name is Brian McKenzie. I have the privilege of service as the Director of Football with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes in the Midwest region and beyond. And just want to welcome you to this fifth edition to the Heart of the Coach. And we want to use these calls just as a source of encouragement, information, equipping coaches all over the country. And this is going to be accomplished hopefully today, as we've been doing the last few times, just by asking our guest coach. Today is Derek Warehime, just asking some questions, let him kind of share his heart, what the Lord's doing in his life, what he has done, what he's hoping he's going to do. So it's my privilege then to introduce our guest coach today, Derek Warehime. He's the new offensive coordinator at the University of New Mexico. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks, Brian. Fired up to be here, man.
And we're glad to have you, brother. Well, just briefly tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so I've got a wife named Kelly. Her and I have been married for what will be 13 years this June. And then we have 3 kids. I've got an 11-year-old daughter named Kaysen, a 9-year-old daughter named Kylie, and a 6-year-old son named Miller. And Kelly and I actually met in college. We both went to college at the University of Tulsa. I played football there, and she played softball there. She's originally from Tucson, Arizona. And we got connected there, and then got into this coaching madness, and have kind of been all over between Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and New Mexico. But we got a fantastic family. We're really proud. Her and I talk about it a lot. We're really proud of the family that we have, and 3 kiddos, all born in different states. But we really enjoyed the lifestyle and the whole lifestyle and the way of living in this profession, I think, has really made us closer as a family, as opposed to breaking us up or making it more difficult to get along with each other.
That's great. Derek and I both have 9-year-old daughters named Kylie. So it's kind of unique there. But and you kind of mentioned that, Coach, in the profession that you're in, you're into your 16th season in college football. You've coached at 7 different schools. And so with all that moving around, how have you maintained a balance with being a husband first, and then you became a father, and now and a coach? How do you maintain that balance?
Me and Kelly have talked about this a bunch, and we believe that the lifestyle and the challenges that come along with coaching, not just moving and changing, jobs, but the day-to-day lifestyle in particular during the season and in spring recruiting, that this lifestyle has made us stronger. It's made us communicate in different ways. There really is no comfort zone to where you get into the standard day-to-day, get home from the 8 to 5 job, sit down on the couch, watch TV, eat some supper together for a little bit. Nobody really talked to each other, and we watch TV a little bit more, and then we end up going to bed, and we wake up the next day and do the exact same thing, right? In this profession, like, that doesn't exist ever. So I think for us, because we take a lot of pride in growing as a husband and wife and leaders of our family, I think we do a really good job of making ourselves, not allowing ourselves, I should say, to get comfortable in that lifestyle of just kind of taking your foot off the gas pedal from a relationship standpoint. And her and I both take a lot of pride in parenting. And as exhausting as that can be from time to time, it's having ownership in what goes on in your house, and whether you're there, physically or not. We're having a Zoom conversation right now. FaceTime's existed for a long period of time, text message and so on and so forth. So there are ways to stay connected as a husband and a wife and with your children, in my opinion. And again, we take a lot of pride in that and put a lot of effort, into our family.
That's great. Just intentionality. That's what you're talking about. There's lots of ways to do it, and you all found a way. And if you want to do it, you can. That's great to hear, Coach. Let me ask this question. It's more of a football question. So what's the greatest football game you've been a part of, and why was it so great?
I'm going to give you 3, okay? Number 1, this is as a coach. Number one, when I was coaching at Sam Houston State, we played at McNeese. This is 2011. And in that league, in the Southland Conference, McNeese had beat up on everybody for a long period of time, in particular in Lake Charles. And we went to McNeese, played a night game there. It was an electric atmosphere. We had a really good football team. And we went in there and beat those guys for the first time, or for the second time ever, in a 25-year period. And that was pretty special for the program. That was special for our players, and our fans. But that was a fun atmosphere, a fun game to be a part of. The second one, 2015, and Kevin was there, and Jay Wash was there as well. We're coaching at Houston, and we go to Louisville, and it's the second game of the season, and we're a part of a new regime under Tom Herman, and we had just won game one. Really didn't play very good, but we won game one, and we're in game two in Louisville, and we end up winning the game. We take the lead at the end. They try to kick a field goal at the very end of the game. Tyus Bowser reaches up and blocks the kick, and we beat them like 34-31. And we went into the locker room after the game, and coach was talking to the team, and you could just, feel a little bit different atmosphere in the locker room after having won that game. And that was memorable, not just because we won the game, but you're in the locker room with 85 football players, and there's a handful of key players on the team that stand up and say, Coach, up until this moment, I wasn't completely on board with everything that you were selling. But this is the first time since I've been a Houston Cougar that we've been in a position to finish a game like this and actually do it on the field and win that game. So now I am a believer in what we're doing and what you're coaching us to do, right? That was a special moment as a coach to be in a locker room and hear a 20-year-old stand up and say that in front of his peers. So that was a significant moment and a significant game. And then lastly,
probably a little bit better if Jay Wash's defense didn't give up so many points.
No doubt, right? There's no excuse. Nobody cares that it was Lamar Jackson playing quarterback for him, right? Nobody cares. There's no excuse.
What's the third one, Coach?
The third one is in 2018 at Texas, again with Kevin and Jay Wash. Whenever we were in Dallas and we beat Oklahoma, that was a special game to be a part of. Special to be in that locker room post game, to see those seniors of that team celebrate and pass the gold hat around, and and get to end their career in that game in October as a winner. That was a pretty cool moment to be a part of as a coach.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, Coach, how does your relationship with Jesus Christ practically impact your players?
I think first and foremost, it practically impacts the players that we coach because we walk into the building and walk out of the building with a mindset of service and knowing that God has put us exactly where we're supposed to be, exactly when we're supposed to be there. And it's our job, it's our mission as Christians to serve people. And those people that we get to serve for the most part on a day-to-day basis are our family members and the kids that we coach. And along with that, we serve the people that we work with. And as long as we have a mindset of service and our heart is in the right place and we're being driven by the right things, I think we can make a significant impact on these guys. Very few of them that we all get to coach come from the households that we all live in and run, right? We all I know very few of the players that I've coached, that I've recruited, that I've sat in their homes for home visits. Their homes don't feel like my home does. Okay. I'm not talking about the look of it. I'm talking about the feel of it. I'm talking about what it sounds like. I'm talking about the relationship that exists inside the house. And I feel like it's our job to educate these guys in so many more ways than just how to block somebody or how to tackle somebody or how to cover somebody. Okay. And to be honest with you, I think at times there are coaches that, well, I'm going to try to really show this guy that I care about him so he plays hard for me. That's the wrong motivation, in my opinion, to coach, right? It's the motivation to legitimately help a young man do something with his life, spiritually, socially, relationally, professionally, right? And then show the examples through the relationship that we've had with all the different players and experiences that we've had in our lives, and share those things with these guys, right? And be a real person. And through that time spent and through that relationship developed, right now, I think we're legitimately spending time doing something for the right reasons. And with the service piece of it being the main source of motivation, Jesus works through us, right? He works through us. It's not necessarily intentional, right? That I've got to bring some Bible verse today, right? Or something specific, right? That I've learned in faith. It naturally comes through, right? Because of the way that we're serving the young men that we're coaching, we're serving the coaches that we're coaching with, right? And Jesus naturally works through you if your mindset is being driven through service.
I love it, Coach. I mean, you're living out the principle taught in Philippians 2:5 says, have this attitude in yourself, which was also in Christ Jesus. What's that attitude? Well, verses 3 and 4 say, do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit. With humility in mind, regard others as more important than yourself. Not merely looking out for your own interest, but also the interest of others. I mean, that service drives everything. And that's what we're commanded to have, that same kind of service attitude that Jesus had for us. And when you do that, it opens up the eyes of your players. And I'm so appreciative of that heart that you have to serve your players, Coach. Well, kind of similar to that, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but in the midst of a long season that all of us football coaches go through, and there's days when we just don't feel like heading off to the facility and getting after it again. It's just been maybe in the midst of a long season, tough things going on. What motivates you when you're not feeling like it to give your best on those days?
Yeah. So, we all experience this a lot of days, of our lives. And first and foremost, again, the mindset of service, it's not about yourself, it's about others, right? So it's who is God putting in front of me to serve? And that's got to be the motivation, in particular whenever you don't feel well. And I think it is the most important for us as coaches to be able to perform at a very high level whenever we do not feel at our best, because we ask our players to do that every day that we coach them. We take them to this place of discomfort, and then we challenge them to push through that place of discomfort and execute at a high level. And we're coaching them to do so in football because we're trying to make the circumstances that they experience in practice and in the off season more difficult or as chaotic as anything that they will ever experience during a football game. I think it's critical that if we're going to ask and demand our players to do that every day that we coach them, then we must be able to do the exact same thing ourselves. Okay. And honestly, to be real with our players, right? To be real with our players. There was a situation where we were we were going on a road. We were leaving to go on a road trip. And I was struggling because my wife had some issues, from a health standpoint. And I was struggling because I didn't want to leave her behind. And I got everything set up, and family was able to come and help out. But regardless, I wasn't going to be right there. And I was a little bit torn up about it. Okay. So it was on my heart. It was on the front of my mind. And I sat down with my guys in the meeting room and said, listen, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm experiencing. I want you guys to know and understand exactly what's on my heart and on the front of my mind. And I'm going to be real with you. But all that being said, right, I'm going to put it aside so I can give you my absolute best in this moment. Right. And then after this meeting's over with, or this practice is over with, I can go back and deal with the issue that I'm dealing with internally. I think those things, again, are critical because we ask our players to do those exact same things, right? We ask our players, listen, you walk into the meeting room, I need you to focus on what we're doing in this meeting because we got to win a game this week, right? But we have to show some care in regard to what's going on in the guy's life, right? Like, everybody's not perfect and everybody's not the toughest when it comes to, their mental makeup. And a guy walks into the room and he's got issues going on at home that he can't control, or he can't be there. His mother's sick, or he's going through girlfriend issues. Like, we've got to have some relatability here, and have some, and be able to serve those issues as well. Again, not just get the guy to block or tackle somebody. So that part of motivation, not just do as I say, not as I do. Obviously, motivation from your family, because you never want to let your family down. You always want to make your family proud, the staff, and then I've already mentioned the players. And then, the other part of it, whenever you're discussing Christ with your players is just another thought. But whenever you're discussing Christ with your players, I mean, everybody in this discussion here knows this, but too often I think being a Christian in coaching is oftentimes related to being soft, right? And in my experience, in my reading, in the things that I've gone through in my life, that there is no such thing as a soft Christian. No such thing. Real Christians are the toughest people on the planet. And I think it's important whenever we're discussing Christianity with our players, who most of the time don't have any real experience of their own in developing a relationship with Christ, that we explain that to them, that they know and understand that you've got to be one of the toughest guys on earth to be able to consider yourself a Christian, and to get that stigma, for whatever reason, away from our faith.
Yeah. Well, you take up your cross daily, right? They're willing to lay our life down, and that takes toughness, and toughness only be explained by the Lord. You mentioned a couple things too through all your answers, just the difference between a transactional coach and a transformational coach. Kind of language out there put out inside out coaching by Joe Ehrman, but just we don't want to serve our players, love our players, be honest with our players so they play better. We want to love, serve, and be honest because we care about them as a person. And I just appreciate your heart for that, Coach. Well, we all kind of been staying at home or you're away from football, just the normal activities of football. What's the Lord been teaching you? Maybe one big thing the Lord's been teaching you during this time.
I think the number one thing is to be a better leader. It's crazy how the Lord talks to you in so many different ways. But I put on, found a new podcast the other day, and Life Church, a leader of Life Church, Craig Rochelle, in Edmond, Oklahoma, has got a leadership podcast, and started listening to it. He's got 72 episodes on there. Started listening to it. Unbelievable messages in there, very simple, and things that I've been able to implement even now, in the immediate. And then, he starts mentioning books, in these podcasts, and I've been able to get my hands on a couple of these books that are very good, and I've implemented a lot of the things that I've already learned, not just from the podcast itself, but from the books that I've read, into our day-to-day life here at home, and into our profession. Right, we're now we have to be better leaders, in my opinion, more than ever, because we're leading from a distance, and we have to over-communicate, and we have to be great reminders, not just to the players that we're responsible for, but the guys that we coach with. And we have to find a way to be creative in the way in which we're communicating. And, and that's been, a big deal for me over this, now going into week 7 of quarantine life, but been able to spend a lot of time of learning about, successful leadership tactics and things that you can implement in your day-to-day life, and then being able to implement those things and evaluate myself as a leader, based on some of these other guys' experiences. So that's the number one thing that's been hammered home into me, certainly for the past, 5 of these 7 weeks that we've been here.
Yeah, great. All right, next fall, University of New Mexico got a new hot offense, scoring points like crazy. Have a great year. You go to a big bowl game. You're playing in New Orleans against Mississippi State, Jay Wash's defense. You're down by 3. Got 1 play left on 35-yard line going in. What are you running? What's your play call?
We're running 4 verticals, and we're throwing it right at Jay Wash's DBs, right? Because I've been in the press box with him. This is no joke. I've been in the press box with him where he's panicked and he's up there and he's hollering and he's coaching the guy from the box. Hey, back up, Joey, back up. Right? Or, of course, the guy's playing off and he's yelling at him from the press box. Hey, press him, right? And then all of a sudden the ball snapped and it's, oh, and then the ball's flying through the middle of the air and it's, oh, no, right? And then the guy knocks the ball away or ends up being an incomplete pass, and it's like the biggest sigh of relief you've ever heard from anybody. So we're definitely going 4 verticals. And I'm probably going to do it out of 3-by-1 so we can try to get one of them corners 1-on-1, and just so we can make Jay Wash panic.
That sounds good. That sounds good. We're going to have Jay Wash on here in another week or so. So once I'm going to ask him the same kind of question and see what he has to say. So,
yeah, I'm excited to hear his response.
Yeah.
Bringing pressure. I'll let you know right now.
Okay. Well, hey, I'm going to open up for a few questions from the viewers here. So somebody got a question, just unmute your mic and ask a question for Coach Warehime.
Coach, can I get that podcast name again? I misheard your podcast.
Yeah, Craig, I'm going to look it up here for you real quick. It's Craig Groeschel, Groeschel. And it's just called Leadership. Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast. Great. He does a good job.
Other questions?
Hey, Coach. Mike Fast from Towson High School in Baltimore. I'm DC in my 5th year of coaching, and my question to you is, when you were young and going through kind of that early stage of just learning, just everything, what to do, but yet having so much passion, but not knowing how to channel it, what is maybe a verse or a practice that kind of saw you through those hard times to get you to where you are now?
The number one verse for me is 1 Corinthians 16:13. It's stand firm in the faith. That's the one that, is kind of my whisper prayer or breath prayer or whatever you want to call it. I bet I say that 15 or 20 times a day to myself at minimum. And in particular, anytime I feel frustration, anxiety, challenged, and to where your emotions are getting to you, or you're facing something like you're discussing right now, that's one that I always come back and remind myself of. And again, it's reminding yourself that no matter what is going on, in your life, everything is happening for a specific purpose, right? And maybe it is to challenge your patience, because you need to improve as a leader or as a Christian in that regard. You never know. It's not our job to know. It's our job to follow the word that's out there in front of us and follow the leadership of Jesus Christ, and be patient and let everything happen when it's supposed to happen. But that's the one that I always come back to, any difficulty in life.
Another question?
Coach Warehime,
Hi, Kevin.
Hey, what's up, Coach? When coaching as a believer, is there how do you get comfortable coaching as a believer? I think sometimes it can be unnerving to do that. How did you get comfortable? How do you get comfortable coaching as a believer and just letting it be obvious that, I am a Christian?
Yeah, this is a challenge for me, because, when I got into coaching, I wasn't really much of a believer at all. I was kind of execute the traditions that you're supposed to execute as a believer, right? But, the guy that really brought me to Christ for the first time is a guy named Rob Leonard. This is when I was coaching at the University of Arkansas at Monticello. And again, my actions, my demeanor, my motivation, right? Everything was opposite of Christ. And to be honest with you, as hard as I was working at my job, and as much as I wanted to improve and progress in the profession and, move up the ranks and earn more money and be recognized, right? And all that stuff. Okay. Everything else was kind of falling apart, right? My relationship with my wife wasn't where it should have been. We had a baby who was very young, and I wasn't being a very present father, even though she's an infant. My relationships with my players wasn't where it should have been, because my motivation for coaching them, my purpose for coaching them was not out of service. And a guy, I was kind of desperate, to be honest with you. And a guy named Rob Leonard, who runs a church in Monticello, Arkansas, but was also our team chaplain and was around all the time. And he had an office on campus, and I was really struggling. And I went over to Rob and sat down with him and kind of told him what I was experiencing, and credit to Rob, he really just called me out, in the right way. But it was very hard in the way that it hit me. And he actually gave me my first Bible when I was sitting there with him, in his office, and he gave me some stuff to read, and I kind of started reading and discussing and slowly, implementing the lessons that I learned into my day-to-day lifestyle as a coach, my day-to-day lifestyle as a husband and as a father. And because of that, right, because of that implementation, intentionality, purpose, right, kind of finding that for the first time, I guess, everything just kind of started to improve. You know, my purpose and the way that I was around the players, and I found myself in the locker room more, you know, just sitting around shooting the bull with the guys, you know, as opposed to only going in there, you know, when a meeting's fixing to begin and hollering at guys and stuff like that. And so the response from the players was better. My relationship with my wife grew stronger. My relationship with my kids and my intentionality as a father grew and became better. So I think it's no different than anything else. You know, it's just becoming comfortable as you learn and continue to learn, you know, in implementing those things in your day-to-day life as a football coach and in everything else that we do. And then standing by those things, right? Standing by those things. That's the biggest challenge. It's one thing to say something and admit to being a believer, right? Confessing that you're a believer or whatever it is in life, but it's another thing to do it on a day-to-day basis and be consistent. That's the hardest part. And, but yeah, I mean, it does it take courage? Yeah, in the beginning it does, because you're really kind of uncertain, you know, but once you get in there and you feel what it feels like and you see the results that you're seeing within yourself and within the people around you, you know, there's no way I would ever want to go back to what I was doing. I was miserable. I was miserable. And you know, and I'm sure everybody in this conversation and a lot of guys in coaching have felt that way before, but that was a special moment, and I'll forever be grateful for Rob and his time spent with me.
Yeah. That's a great question, a great note to end on, just having a vital ongoing relationship with Jesus. And that's how you get comfortable with living it out. As he gets more a hold of you, then it just naturally flows out. Well, it's been another great Heart of the Coach, and so appreciative of you, Coach, for being on and sharing your heart, just your honesty and your clarity. So thanks so much for doing that. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Brian. Thanks for having me on.
Before we get off here, just want to remind everybody, we're going to, if you guys got off early, they're going to be sad they got off early. This Wednesday, we have Tremaine Jackson, who's the head coach at Colorado Mesa, will be on Wednesday. And then Friday, which was already scheduled, we also have Sean Watson, who's the new quarterback coach in Northern Iowa. And then here's a surprise for all of you guys. We'd be glad that you stayed on to hear this Thursday. So we have a special edition of the Heart of the Coach. Tom Osborne, Hall of Fame coach from University of Nebraska, is going to be our guest on Thursday. So we got Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week. You'll all be getting information about that. But glad to have everybody, and especially you today, Coach. It's great to get to know you better. Praying for your ministry and your coaching there at New Mexico.
Appreciate you, Brian.
Appreciate you too. You guys have a great day.